why are you still sick even though you're trying to do everything right? You've tried supplements, changed your diet, detox, followed expert protocols, and you've researched until your vision went blurry. You've tried plans that other people swore worked for them, but when you tried it, your body either didn't respond or things maybe even got worse. If that sounds familiar, it's not because you're not trying hard enough, it's because almost everyone is asking the wrong question. Most people who are chronically sick are asking, what's wrong with me? And while that question sounds logical, it's actually part of why people are still sick. When we don't feel well, we want a label. We want someone to point to one thing and say, that's the problem. That's exactly what I wanted to. Because getting a diagnosis feels like we're getting clarity. It feels like all our frustration and symptoms have meaning and like something maybe we can fix. But here's what I kept seeing both in my own healing and in people I work with. When you focus on what is wrong, you automatically will start chasing symptoms. One label is going to lead to another, one protocol leads to another. That diagnosis gives you hope that you can fix it. So you put in the effort and ultimately end up disappointed again on that familiar up and down roller coaster of hope, because the body doesn't operate in isolated parts. It operates as a complete system with a bunch of moving parts that all rely on each other to do their own jobs. So when one part breaks down, it drags down all the other systems with it. And that's a part almost nobody explains. Most chronic illnesses can't be simplified into one problem. There's a stack of problems creating pressure on all the other systems. Layers of stress stacked on layers of inflammation caused by layers of infection and toxic overload, creating layers of dysfunction in the nervous system. And when all those layers build over time, the body starts compensating in ways that look like isolated diagnoses. For example, Jacqueline came to me after being diagnosed with Lyme. She had been through multiple long-term rounds of antibiotics, but nothing was getting better. And in fact, she was just getting worse. She had severe joint pain. Her hands were beginning to deform in that way that looks like rheumatoid arthritis. And her MD told her it was just arthritis and that there wasn't much they could do. But she was only like 50 years old. When we evaluated her system as a whole, Lyme was not her only issue. She had multiple systems under strain, and there were layers of infection, including parasites and Lyme co-infections, along with significant toxic burden. Her immune system was so overwhelmed. Her detox pathways were congested, and her energy production had been compromised. It wasn't one problem. It was a stack of problems affecting her whole body, and because everything was being treated as a single issue, just Lyme or just arthritis, nothing was resolving for her. When we shifted the focus to restoring capacity, supporting detox pathways, stabilizing systems, and systematically addressing the infections and toxicity in the right order, her body responded very differently. Her joint pain resolved, her hand deformities fully reversed, and today she's thriving. That's what happens when you stop treating isolated labels and start addressing the full system, because the body is constantly adapting to stress. Nervous system stress, inflammation, toxic load, energy demands. When stressors stack beyond what the body can compensate for, systems begin to shift into protection mode because survival becomes your body's highest priority. When that happens, resources have to get redirected. So energy that would normally go towards repair gets diverted towards managing infections, neutralizing toxins, and putting out inflammatory fires. When survival is taking most of the resources, repair is going to slow down. That's where people get confused because they assume if they address one issue, everything else should improve. So they maybe detox mold, but energy doesn't improve. They'll correct nutrient deficiencies, but inflammation persists. They support methylation, but fatigue doesn't change. In these cases, the idea might not be wrong, but if the body is still allocating resources towards survival instead of repair, progress is going to stall. It's not just about what you support. It's about whether the system has enough stability and capacity to use the support that you give it. So why is understanding healing capacity so important? Basically, healing capacity is how much energy the body can put towards healing while still trying to keep you alive and breathing, because every day your body is balancing two jobs: survival and repair. When survival takes all the resources, your body is smart enough to put healing on hold. It puts it on the back burner. That's not a weakness. It's your body keeping you alive. Of course, you don't feel great, but this is one of the main reasons people stay stuck for years. The body is simply using every ounce of energy it has to keep you upright. This is why two people can take the exact same protocol and have completely different results. One does great and the other crashes or maybe even feels nothing. It's not about willpower or effort. It's about that healing capacity. People with low healing capacity tend to have extreme sensitivity to supplements. They feel worse when they detox. They're the people who get better briefly and then slide backwards again. They tend to repeat the constant up and down cycles of hope followed by that ever so familiar disappointment. This is where most people think they're failing or that their body is broken, but it's actually just the body saying, I'm just not ready yet. After working with complex chronic illnesses for years, I started noticing something consistent. People weren't failing because their protocols were bad. They kept failing because their bodies didn't have the capacity to respond yet. If the nervous system is still in survival mode or detox pathways are congested or energy production is depleted, then even a good protocol is going to tend to overwhelm that system. I've worked with people who react to almost everything. Even basic minerals or gentle detox would trigger flares, and previously they were told that meant they were detoxing too aggressively. But in reality, their nervous system was still unstable and their healing capacity was extremely low. Like Marilyn. Marilyn came to me because her body started to feel like it was falling apart. She had constipation alternating with diarrhea, severe brain fog, headaches, and macular degeneration. Her healing capacity evaluation showed her body was struggling just to keep her upright. She had almost no extra energy to put towards the healing she was so desperately seeking. Her body needed very basic support to start, and because we could evaluate her most basic needs, the precise support products, and even the dose that was best for her, she's now able to easily progress through her recovery plan without further setbacks. We didn't push harder, we stabilized first, and once capacity increased, the same supports that used to flare then became not only tolerable, but extremely beneficial. It's like trying to renovate a house while the foundation is unstable. The materials are not the problem, the structure you're building it on isn't solid. So when support is introduced out of sequence, one of three things usually does happen. Either nothing changes, symptoms temporarily improve but don't hold, or the body flares and you assumed you detoxed too hard or had a Herxheimer reaction. But it's almost never about intensity, it's about how much energy your body has to put towards healing. And if it's not ready, that's where the support has to start. This is exactly why I use muscle testing. Not to give you another diagnosis or help you chase symptoms, but to gather structured, functional feedback in real time to understand what systems are currently under the most pressure, where is healing capacity, and what is the body actually ready to address first. I had a client who'd been taking CoQ10 for years because as a nutritionist, she understood its role in mitochondrial energy production. The idea made sense, but she was not improving. Through functional testing, we determined that her energy issue was not a CoQ10 problem. It was a protein amino acid deficiency affecting her ability to actually build the components required for energy production. The supplement wasn't wrong, it just wasn't the priority her body needed. Before this kind of feedback, she was just guessing, and that's why so many people stay stuck for so many years. When you start making decisions based on real-time capacity instead of assumptions, everything changes. Progress becomes steadier, less dramatic, and more sustainable. You stop bouncing between protocols, you stop pushing harder, and you start rebuilding capacity first. And once you have the energy to start to repair, the same supports that once failed often begin to work again. This is incredibly important to understand because it means that your body is not broken. Your body isn't resisting healing. It's not fighting you. It's protecting itself until the conditions are safe enough to repair. And when you respect that, healing starts to feel predictable instead of chaotic. If you've been sick for years and feel like you've tried everything, it may not be that you haven't done enough. It may be that no one helped you to see how well your systems are working together, where they're falling short, and why. And once you understand your body's readiness to heal and how stacked stressors overwhelm it, the next logical question becomes, how do you actually measure what your body is ready for? That's where structured functional feedback becomes essential. And that's how we begin unwinding the mess without creating a new one. If you've been sick for years and feel like you've tried everything, it's not because you haven't worked hard enough. It's because no one has shown you how to evaluate the full system. Your body is not broken. It's simply responding to pressure the only way it knows how to. And until that pressure is understood and reduced and healing capacities rebuilt, progress will always feel unstable. Healing doesn't begin with a better protocol. It begins with understanding what your body can actually handle right now, and when you respect that, everything changes. That's the framework we use inside Institute for Root Cause Health Restoration. Not guesswork, not protocol stacking, structured restoration based on real-time feedback. If this framework explains what you've been experiencing, the next videos will break down how we measure readiness and where stabilization has to start, why you're feeling the symptoms you're feeling, and how you can start to unwind them. Start there. And if you're ready to stop guessing entirely, you'll find more about working with us in the description.